I'm washing my hands over and over again. Saliva is pooling in my mouth, sitting in a puddle on my tongue. It feels like I'm drowning. I need to get it out of my body, so I stick my head under the faucet and let the cold water flow over my lips and gums, my teeth. In 1 month, I will sit in a pediatrician's office and be diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder. I'm 8 years old, and it's 1996. They call a disorder acute onset when it appears overnight. For me, the symptoms started showing up after my 8th birthday, out of nowhere, basically. I don't remember when it started. I just know that I started to feel strange at the end of the summer, and I could feel my body doing things that I wasn't in control of. I didn't understand what was going on, and I was moving my stuffed animals 1 inch to the left, 1 inch to the right on my bed. Nothing was quite perfect. I would linger in the bathroom, washing my hands over and over again, causing them to crack and bleed. So I would have to go to sleep at night with my hands covered in Vaseline, coated in white athletic socks, and it turned my hands into little paws that I would curl against my throat as I slept. My mouth wasn't a safe place anymore. What if I swallowed what was inside it and the germs would get in me and I would get sick? At school, I would rinse my mouth over and over again at the sink for as long as I could get away with it before anyone would notice. And many people with OCD have a safe number. This is a number of times they have to do something before it feels okay. But I didn't. So I would just repeat behaviors over and over and over until I was interrupted because I was under the spell of a disorder that I didn't even have a name for. When I was confronted by my parents or my teachers or my babysitter who did not understand what was going on, what I was doing, or why, I would emotionally shut down, becoming as unresponsive as stone. So my mother took me to the pediatrician. By luck, there was a psychologist down the hall, and she immediately knew what was going on. It did not take her much time to diagnose me. And as we waited for the referral to come through to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, my mom tried everything she could think of. We got a fluffy white puppy. I was put on a strict elimination diet after testing positive for a bunch of food sensitivities. No dairy, no chocolate, no strawberries, no cheese, no bread, nothing inflammatory because my brain was already on fire. In the new year, I began seeing a child psychologist at the hospital. And I don't remember much about therapy. I know it involved hand puppets and fuzzy sandy lion stickers and worksheets that tried to teach me how to identify emotions like fear and anger. Because kids with OCD can have trouble regulating their emotions and understanding why they need treatment at all. So after about 2 months, I graduated from treatment and I finished the 3rd grade. And I was in remission, which happens for about half of kids that are diagnosed with OCD. As the years passed, I blocked the entire experience from my brain. It was like a bad memory, a phase that I grew out of. Nobody talked about it, and I pretended that it never happened. It would be a decade before my disorder would flare up again. And this time, it would be back for good. Officially, up to 4% of people in the general population suffer from OCD. But there are probably many more out there that we don't know about. There might be some of you in the audience. And the reason is because one of the hallmark characteristics of OCD involves making you believe that you're not actually sick. You're just a terrible person capable of terrible things. And if you tell anybody about what's going on in your brain, whether that's a parent, a friend, a partner, a doctor, a priest, the things that you're the most afraid of are guaranteed to come true. OCD is also portrayed as a bit of a joke in pop culture. It's a personality quirk that's given to secondary characters that are described as neat freaks or compulsive organizers who are obsessed with things like arranging and counting. But OCD is more than just having a preference for clean cupboards or locked doors. So what is it? OCD is if, when. If I don't do this, then that will happen. An obsession and a compulsion. The compulsion could be just about anything. It could be counting, checking, praying, washing, promising, seeking reassurance, avoiding. It could be conjuring the image of something safe to erase the image of something bad, something that's violently disturbing or sexual in nature. It could be seeking reassurance from someone that you trust to tell you that you're not capable of doing that thing. Everything's going to be okay. It could be hiding yourself away so that you're not a danger to other people. And why does this compulsion work, whatever it may be? It's usually something that you tried once, and it might have given you some relief, and so now you have to do it every time or else. And yes, everyone has intrusive thoughts. Thoughts like, what if I accidentally twist the wheel and I drive into the guardrail? Or what if I somehow jump off of the subway platform onto the tracks as the train is coming? But most people are able to shake away those intrusive thoughts as easily as shaking an Etch-a-Sketch. It's not much effort, and it goes away, and they can draw something new. But people with OCD aren't able to shake the Etch-a-Sketch of their brain. They're stuck turning those knobs again and again, redrawing over everything, getting it super messy. They need help. There's no such thing as being a little OCD either. That's another thing I hear all the time. And people joke about letting the intrusive thoughts win when they describe doing something impulsive like getting bangs or booking a vacation they can't afford. On TikTok, I see this all the time. Influencers talk about lucky girl syndrome, which is a shorthand for like manifesting money into existence. But outside of social media and comic books, we can't actually think things into existence. And believing that we have that power is really dangerous for people who believe that their thoughts, which are very graphic, will come to life. So here's an example when I say graphic. Imagine you're sitting next to a family member on the couch, and you're feeling the warmth of two bodies sitting next to each other. You're mistaking that warmth for an indication that you're sexually attracted to them. So you do a body scan. You check for other signs of arousal. You ask to yourself, do they suspect anything? Or imagine that you're making dinner, and your partner hands you the big knife. You're making salad. You're cutting up the carrots into little dowels, and you imagine again and again and again sliding that knife, losing control, and stabbing your partner. Your partner's voice is distant in the background. Are you listening to me? You're not responding. Can you even hear me? It doesn't matter that you don't want to do any of these things, because OCD is a disorder that can't be reasoned with. It can't be logicked away. So why and when do people develop OCD? First, when. There are two peaks of onset. There's pre-adolescence, which is what happened with me, and early adulthood. And in kids, OCD can be triggered by a viral infection, like strep throat. It's called pandas, if you've heard of it before, and it can go away as quickly as it arrived. But it's not always caused by strep throat. This first peak of OCD also corresponds with a new phase of cognitive development in children, because when kids turn 8, they start changing the way they understand themselves and their place in the world. We know that there's a genetic component to it. It tends to run in families. I won't say any more about that, but I do have a suspicion that might be true for mine. Like so many mental health conditions, it's often co-occurring, so it shares links with things like anxiety and depression, ADHD, bipolar, even substance abuse. And that's because many of these disorders share the same neurotransmitters and the same brain structures. In their lifetimes, 3/4 of people with OCD will develop depression. Could be linked with sleep, because we know that people with OCD are significantly likely to have more difficulty falling asleep, waking up, and also have poor quality of sleep. And this could be because of differences in their circadian rhythm. For some, it could be linked to trauma. A 2018 study found that 72% of Canadians with OCD experienced some kind of mistreatment in childhood. Researchers are currently looking into how the gut microbiome can impact the emergence of OCD. Without knowing it, that elimination diet that my mom put me on could have helped steer me towards remission. OCD could very well be an autoimmune condition. We just don't know. For me, my high school years passed without incident. The thing with OCD was a blip, an outlier. a weird aberration, and I pretended that it never happened. It was just some embarrassing thing that happened to me, weird kid stuff, and I didn't even really remember that I had OCD. It was just that weird thing that happened when I was 8. I still had strange things that I had to do, but I didn't tell anybody about them. I just thought that I was a bit of a freak. And I was about to enter my second year of university where I was studying biology, and it was the first day of class. I felt itchy and uncomfortable, agitated. I entered the dark lecture hall and I sat in the front row, and a TA was passing around fluorescent pink syllabi, and suddenly I felt like I couldn't breathe. So I grabbed all my books, grabbed the syllabus, ran out the door, slamming my hands on the door and jogging down into the garden. I parted way into a tall stand of ornamental grass, and I sat down on the soil and sobbed as all these other students were milling about around me. My OCD was back, and this time it was completely different. So instead of contamination or checking, I started getting intense visions of it, just the most bombastic, violent, and sexual acts. The more random that they were, the more I was convinced that I was evolving into insanity. And I suspected that people who are preternaturally bad, like me, experienced some kind of second adolescence where they turned into the abusers, the assaulters, the murderers that they were already destined to become. I had to be very careful to watch my behavior, to nip any signs of acting out in the bud. And I constantly did body scanning. I was looking for any signs of excitement or arousal because I was convinced that I was a pervert, a psychopath. I was going to ruin my family. And I anxiously thought of death because I could not imagine another 50 years of living like that. So the panic attacks kept coming. I went to the campus clinic and I saw the school psychologist, and she somewhat scathingly informed me that females don't really become perverts or psychopaths, duh, and I was just imagining it. She told me I did not have OCD. So I decided to never tell anyone about my OCD again until I was asked to make a podcast for Brain Canada. Research and treatment and media coverage will always, 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 always buy favor. It will default to those who can afford to make their stories heard. So much of having a long-term illness hinges on how well someone's able to advocate for themselves and then be taken seriously. But listening to stories of real people helps everyone. It helps parents recognize symptoms in their kids. It helps teenagers understand that they're not alone. And it helps adults recognize that maybe that thing they've been dealing with since childhood is actually treatable. My journey with OCD isn't over. It's going to flare up again and again and again. September is not a great month for me. Just want to say that. But the beauty of going through something hard is being able to reveal parts of the path for somebody else. And we can all struggle forward in big, lurching steps towards a future. That's it.